One thing I'd like to mention about the forms contained in this digital package that I've put together for you all is it might not seem apparent right out front that you can type into these lines, but you actually can. They're just hidden from plain view. However, when you receive this document and you open it up on your laptop or desktop computer, it's going to look a little bit different. So let's show that view. All right, so when you open your document, it's going to look at this, and there is a bunch of text fields that you can add your text to. And feel free to print out all the forms and write on them, mark them up. But we just ask that the end product be plugged into this digital form here and saved as such, because we don't want to get caught up in trying to decipher somebody's handwritten goals that don't have real legible writing. So we don't want to get caught up into that. So we just ask that your end product goes into the digital version of this form. And with that said, we'll move on to the shared goal and action planning model. So this is a very simplified model. You know, the organization had went through some strategic planning, and out of that strategic planning came 6 strategic initiatives. And the Equity and Inclusion Committee is responsible for goal number 3, which is to expand the knowledge and awareness of equity and inclusion. And then below that, there's 4 goal strategies, and these are the 4 equity and inclusion goal strategies that really help us create the equity lens. And so down beneath that, I'll let you all in your planning sessions go through those 4 strategies and see which one of those strategies really relate to the goals that you are trying to accomplish within your department, within your program, or your center-based site. So down at the bottom, we have, the overarching goals, which is the broad statement that reflects the organization's mission, vision, and values. And then the goal strategies, which are those 4 EI goal strategies. Those are the methods employed to move us towards the overarching goal. And then your teams are really going to work within the activities, right? So it's the department, your department or program or center site's plan to move towards those 4 strategies that relate to the overarching goal, if that makes sense. And if this is confusing at all, that's fine. Try to massage it out within your teams, and feel free. We please encourage you to reach out to one of our Equity and Inclusion Committee members that's knowledgeable about this document, and they can help walk you through this process as well. And hopefully this will be useful enough for you, but you always know that there are other staffers that can support you in this process. So moving on. So the shared goal and action plan. So we took those 4 equity and inclusion goal strategies that are organizational wide, and we just put them in the left-hand column. So when you're working with your teams to develop your goals, you want to link whatever goal you come up with to one of those 4 equity and inclusion goal strategies. Whatever closest matches that strategy, that's what you want to connect your goal to. And I'll give you an example of that here in a second. So now in the next column is the recommendations, IFAs. So when we developed the work plan, at the end of that work plan, we had recommendations or ideas for action, because we knew that you were going to go through this planning process, and we wanted to share out some ideas for actions that you could use in the goal development process. And if you don't remember, this is actually part of the document of the work plan, but I just pulled out a few for illustrative purposes. So when you go into the ideas for actions, you could just look at your goal and then go through the domains and figure out which domain closest complements your specific goal, right? So for us, one of our goals was to bring in 3 high quality trainers in to do organizational wide training and we were charged with doing those once a quarter over the course of fiscal year 19. And so if you look down here in Domain 7 Community Collaborations, we have partnered with professional development trainers to conduct organizational-wide trainings for 7 generations. So we go back over here, and actually that is laid out right here. See, so we just pulled an idea for action straight out of the work plan, which we encourage you to do the same. But I will say that some departments or some programs have very specific ideas around what they want to do, and they might not be listed in those ideas for action. And we encourage you to develop your own. Those ideas for action were just idea generators to get you moving and started in the goal planning process. So with that, the next section is, again, where you'll live. So your activities. So this is where you work with your team members to come up with the activities that will move you towards the equity and inclusion strategy that you chose, right? And so you'll know what that is, and you'll develop that. But I will say this, that your activities and your recommendations need to connect to the goal strategy. If there's a disconnect there, your shared goal and action plan or your SIP plan, your continuous improvement plan, will get kicked back because there needs to be a direct correlation between the two, if that makes sense. And then lastly, the responsibility. That's quite straightforward. Who's ever out in front of handling all the tasks that go into those activities will be cataloged here. So in this instance, it was me, Marcus Maceo, and the EI committee. We were responsible for coming up and figuring out who those trainers would be that we would like to bring in. Okay. Now, here's the continuous improvement plan. Again, this seems like a lot of information on one document, but it's a lot of the same information, and it's just a bunch of carryover information. So all this information is the same. So in the beginning, you developed your SMART goals through your SMART goal planning worksheet. You documented that information and connected it to an equity and inclusion strategy. You connected to an equity and inclusion strategy in the shared goal and action plan, and now you're just carrying all that information over. And the only addition to this particular document is data collection. So we've added in this section, what are you going to be using for a data collection method? In this particular example, we're using trainer evaluation forms and an organizational-wide survey. And then once you figure out your data collection source, when you collect all that data, it's just, all the summary information that you use. So in the illustration that we used in the Q1 training, we surveyed 168 staffers. They responded to the equity and inclusion question that was on the all staff meeting survey. Out of those 168, 142 responded favorably to the training. So 86% of the staffers who responded to the survey liked the training. So that gave us some indication that the training was good, that the survey was valid because we got an overwhelming response. And then in the last column, it talks about how are you going to use the results. The reason we put this information in here, in these data points in here, is when you're trying to collect data, you want to figure out if your goal is working. If there's something that you need to adjust in the goal or the goal strategy or the activities, there's something in there. If you're not getting the results that you want, then it just warrants another look. And that's the reason for this information here. Now, beneath that, we just have continuous improvement notes where you can just put in any cursory notes that you would like to add to that. And again, back over to the left-hand column, which is the EI strategies. You pick one, and we have a drop down here where you can pick whatever goal strategy you selected. You would pop that in there. Your idea for action would go under recommendation, and then the activities that would go into moving you closer towards those goal strategies would go in this domain right here. It's pretty straightforward. Again, this is activity sheet 1. So there's 2 activity sheets. You only need to do 1 goal, but we recommend 2. One might be enough for the year for you. It might be a big goal. But we do have another planning sheet, I think, beneath this one. If I can get to it. Here we go. Yeah. So this is, and you see here the activity has changed. Recommendation 2, activity 2. And up at the top right, you'll notice you have some options here on how to save your document. So the first one you can save as, then you can print it, and then you clear the form. I suggest that you walk through this in the order from left to right. So you would then save the document and then print the document, of course. Well, not that page, but we'll go all the way to the end here. You print that off, and then after you're done with that, you would want to keep this document wherever it lives on in your folders, or it's always available on the shared drive in the Teams folder in the Equity and Inclusion folder. But once you save the document, you can clear out the form. So steer clear of the clear form, because once your data is lost, it's lost, and you cannot retrieve it or click back. It won't work. So just make sure you save and then print. Have a hard copy on file and whatnot. And I think that concludes this explainer video. I hope it was useful. And like I said before, you can reach out to anybody on the Equity and Inclusion Committee. They can help walk you through this form if you have any questions. And I hope this explainer was useful enough to help you get through your goal planning process. Thank you.